happy you're here. Thank you for coming to see us.
Thank you.
Always an honour to be in your company. Now, Halloween is here, a few days away.
Yes.
And I never knew about this incredible, special, hidden talent that you have involving, look at this, pumpkin carving. Look at Geena Davis's pumpkins here. How did you... how did you get into this, and how long does it take to do something like this?
Well, that took a few weeks. But, so I'd always carved pumpkins with the kids, but then I saw Martha Stewart pumpkin carving kit online, and I ordered it, and then with the illustrations of the booklet, you know, I said, I got the biggest pumpkin I could find, which was about 200 pounds.
Stop.
And then this was on the set of, while we were shooting Stuart Little.
Well, yeah, I saw this here. Look at this, Stuart Little up here, look.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And so that's a ship. That's an illustration from the book. Anyway, yeah, I just went I take everything too far.
And have you got your design for this year? Have you started on a pumpkin yet?
No, I'm starting it tomorrow. And I got a note from a neighbor saying, we're having a party, I hope it doesn't bother any of your neighbors. And so I'm gonna get a huge pumpkin and carve his house on it and then just leave it there. I'm not invited to the party.
Right.
I'm just gonna secretly leave it.
Don't you hate it when your neighbours do that? Your neighbours go, we're having a party, we apologise for the noise.
Right.
If you're sleeping or anything. It's like, well, there's one way that I would be awake.
Yeah. And I wouldn't
if I was at your party,
right.
then I wouldn't mind the noise. And they go, it's not really going to work like that. Sorry. I mean, before you became an Academy Award-winning actor, you had quite an interesting job in New York. What were you doing in New York before your career took off?
Well, I was a mannequin in a store window. So
hang on. An actual... What do you mean?
So I was a sales girl at Ann Taylor, and I always wore Ann Taylor clothes and always made up and everything. And one day there was in the window in the front, there were two mannequins sitting at like a little cafe table, and there was an empty chair in between them. They were having like plastic food or whatever. And I said, dare me to get in the window? And they were like, yeah, go ahead. So I went and sat in the window, and I didn't know what I was planning to do once I was there, but some people had been looking in the window, and they started just watching, like, what is she gonna do? So then I just froze like a mannequin, and a crowd started gathering because people would come up and say, what are you looking at? And they'd say, just wait. So, yeah.
What pose did you adopt? What pose did you adopt?
I don't, kind of, you know, like a mannequin.
So what's the secret? What's the secret? Hang on, what did your boss say?
Well, so...
Presumably they were employing you to not be a mannequin.
Exactly. Yeah, and so a huge crowd finally gathered, and the manager came over and said, oh, my God, Geena, get out of the window. And then she saw how big the crowd was, and she was like, stay in the window. So they started hiring me every Saturday to be a mannequin.
For someone who's so good at being so still, you have starred in some of the most incredible blockbusters that have ever been made in the world. Amazing action movies. When you were making those films, what do you remember? What's the riskiest kind of stunt that you've ever had to do where you thought, OK, this is terrifying? Yeah,
the worst was on Long Kiss Goodnight. There's a scene where, thank you, there's a scene where Sam Jackson and I come flying out a window, and we're falling over a lake on ice, and I shoot with a machine gun a hole in the ice.
I remember that.
Right. Yeah. And then we fall in.
Yeah.
So it was on the schedule that we're going to do the scene where we pop up out of the ice, and I'm like, what stage is that going to be on? And it was the day we were going to shoot it. They said, no, we're going to the location. And they had cut a hole in a real lake in the ice.
Stop.
And it was already slushing over, you know, with it trying to... And so Sam Jackson and I had to get in the hole and go under the water, where they said, you know, action, we went under the water and then pop out. So we did, and it was like being hit in the head with a sledgehammer, you know. I mean, I couldn't see or think or hear. And we popped up and we crawled to this hot tub they had set up. And we're like, oh my God, and Sam's like lighting a cigarette. I'm like, I can never, thank God that's over. And then the director comes over and says, oh, we have to do it again. You didn't pop up, you know, pop up enough. It wasn't poppy enough. So we did it 3 times.
Stop, in freezing cold water?
In freezing cold, kill your brain water. And so the final time we had to push on the ice to be far enough down that it would actually...
Stop.
Yeah.
The worst thing about this is anyone that's watching it,
Yeah.
not for 1 second thinks it's real.
No, of course not.
Everyone watching it goes, yeah, I bet that water's like 75 degrees. It's fine.
Exactly.
Not minus 12.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, that was hard.
We should get a hot tub here.
So we could crawl over.
We should get a hot tub that we should crawl over. Now let's talk about your fantastic memoir, Dying of Politeness. I like this title. It's a very, what I would consider a very British sentiment. What inspired the name, Dying of Politeness?
Well, it's partly because I almost literally died of politeness, and I was raised to be so insane. You know, New Englanders are very much like British people, where you don't complain about anything, you don't talk about anything. And the earliest example I have of this was I was in church. My mom told this story all the time. I was in church. I was a baby on her lap, and moving around, and all of a sudden I clocked my head on the pew in front of us, and it was so loud that the minister stopped talking and everybody froze, waiting to hear how much, you know, I'm going to scream. And my mom said, shh. And my mom says, and she didn't make a peep. And that was her proudest moment, was that
she cracked your head on a pew and you didn't cry.
I didn't cry. And she told that with such delight for my whole life. Yeah.
In the book, you talk, of course, about your incredible career in life, and you mentioned in the book that your Thelma and Louise co-star, Susan Sarandon, that you say that she changed your life.
Yeah.
In what say? I don't feel like you're necessarily talking about the film. She, as a person, changed your life as a human being.
Yes.
In what way?
So I get cast in the part, and they say Susan's going to play the other role. And she and I and Ridley Scott are going to meet just to go through the script, see if anybody has any ideas or thoughts. And I had a couple of thoughts I wanted to bring up, but I had planned out the girliest possible way to talk about them. You know, well, I don't know what you think. Maybe that's probably a stupid idea. Well, anyway, and so we sit down, and Susan, like, I think it was like page 1, said, my first line here, I think we should just cut that. And I was like, well, I just had never met a woman who says what she thinks without being embarrassed about it, you know, and the whole day was like that, and the whole shoot was like that. Just being able to experience how she moved through the world, which was so different than what I had. I was just embarrassed for taking up space, but she just was very comfortable. And the most important thing was nobody fell over. People weren't horrified by her being, just say what she thinks. Yes, I like that, and I don't want that, you know. It sounds crazy, but that's how polite I was.
No, I get it. I hear what you're saying. If she'd have cracked her head on a pew...
Yeah.
She'd have screamed the church down.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Well, she is an amazing, wonderful woman, as are you. And we're so happy that you came to see us. You can get a copy of Geena's book, Dying of Politeness, anywhere books are sold. Stick around. We'll be right back with Yuval Noah Harari.